Alrighty, welcome everyone. I'm Chris Dobbin and I'm here with my mate in partner in crime, Samoa. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, very good. Welcome everyone to today's session of Amplify Your Brand. Chris making the introduction, Simone, aka Branding Buff, aka
There
Mr.
he is.
Logo. Welcome you all to today's session that will revolve around unique selling propositions. Welcome, Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so obviously we've developed a series of videos over the last few weeks where we've touched on vision, and through that vision, we led to understanding that within a vision, you identify a purpose. We went through the differentiations of those, and from purpose, we've ended up with the mission statement. Now, what comes out in the mission statement is that you need to have a USP somewhere attached in there. So that's why this week we've touched on that. But that led to a interesting side of the coin where we actually then have to differentiate what is different between a mission statement and a USP. So as we've done previous sessions, we have on the screen there just a quick help, I guess a way to hint on how to look at them differently. So the key thing we want to take away from last week is a mission statement is something that's used and more so internally. It can be seen out there in the public, but it is really about a way you're going to get where you're going to take the organization. So it's almost like short-term goals and plans to achieve whatever you're trying to aspire to do. Where the USP is a little bit different in how it goes about that. It actually tries to, when someone's in the decision-making process and looking at your competitor or a product or something of that nature, they look for something to make it unique and different. And that's where the USP comes in, because it finds a way to highlight that difference and make that choice for your consumer or your customer a lot easier. And that's I guess the easy way to put it. But I guess, Sim, throwing it back to you, what's your thoughts on the difference of a mission statement and USP?
You said it all. The mission statement is a breakdown that will serve as a guiding rule of everyday activities. When we talked about mission statement and building that so that it becomes very relatable and easy to implement, it's breaking up the goals in terms of yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. Once you have that very clear, you can't miss it. You just need to make sure you have an action list for the day, for the week, so on and so forth, so you fulfill your vision. The USP, on the other hand, is geared at the stakeholders, your audience, and that audience could reside outside of the premises of your company. It's your clients, it's your client base. You're talking to them, you're talking to other colleagues, and you want to make sure that that is a differentiation from everything else.
Yeah, I usually, when I'm working with a lot of clients, I talk about the fact that when you're walking down an aisle and you're in a supermarket, there's a reason why you pick a can of soup over another can of soup, or spaghetti over spaghetti, or whatever
Yes.
your product is. But whatever the mainstream consumer items are, there is always a reason why you pick something over another, and it's usually based on a unique selling point that they have clearly said out loud to you in some format, whether that be social media or a radio ad or a newspaper clipping or whatever the way you consume that kind of information. And that makes that decision for you in that moment when you're going to go, I need to go with them because they make me feel a certain way.
Excellent point. Excellent comparison, Chris. The alleyway of a supermarket is no better place to study marketing because it provides everything that you need to know about USPs, about target audience, and about strategy. I like round shapes better. I'm going to grab my barbecue sauce that has a round shape. It has colors that appeal to me as compared to somebody else. My grandfather would probably pick a barbecue sauce that is much more old fashioned, that has very straight lines. And that's the reason why packaging, messaging, colors play such a vital role in helping strategize a go to market moment. The
Yeah. And
aisles
I
on
guess
both sides. Yes, just to finish that one. Aisles on both sides have all sorts of different shapes and messages, and we're visual for first and foremostly. So
mhm,
anything that grabs our
yep.
attention is going to create a retina placement. And now we're talking about brand. Somebody thought that. Somebody wanted to speak to that. You have gone for a strategy that has been devised and it is working or not working.
Yeah, and I guess going a little bit deeper into branding as its general way is the best forms of branding are the ones where the consumer doesn't even know the branding's there. It's just something they're doing. They're just reacting to it. They're just saying, I get that.
Yeah.
That's me. I feel good about it. I want that. So that's the ultimate sort of goal of branding, is that you take out the thinking of the process and they just do because it feels right. It something in them just says that's where I need to take myself, or I need to work with these people. I need to buy that product. That's sort of how this goes about. Hence why today we've gone into the USP and talking about that, and as it sort of identifies there, a concise, clear, and relevant way to talk to your target audience. So it should be specific and focus on things. So I guess one way to, since we're talking about the target audience, and we're really going into what we've got on the screen here, which is it's talking about the pain points, it's talking about the preferences, it's looking at demographics, patterns of behavior. Why will they walk a mile in your shoes and understand you? So I guess target audience, do we want to talk about that for a little bit?
Well, as business owners, we sometimes incur in making assumptions. Sometimes those assumptions are proved valid and sometimes they're not. But this is why we recommend creating surveys, for example, identifying the psychographics, the patterns in demographics, or whatever term you want to use them, is being able to pick the patterns that are common to the people that you want to reach. So this is going to help you in defining your message and understanding how to position your USP to reach that goal. Many times this can be done by simply asking people. You don't need to go through a whole lot of work, but you can do your market research. Today, online allows us to be very prompt, very reachable, and have a lot of contact to the world. So you can ask on social media, for example, what people think about a specific thing, and you'll get immediate answers in quantities to validate or invalidate your assumptions.
Yeah. And just on that, I've worked with a number of clients that have told me what they think their USP is, or what their clients think, and all these kind of things. And when they have done a little survey where they've called up their clients or done what you've just suggested and put it out into the social media and asked questions, the responses a majority of times a little bit different to what they expected. But it's not just that they're different, it's the words that the clients use that they go, it's interesting they said that. That's something the client says to me a lot, right? And then I go,
Yes.
Why? And then they go into it, and then I go, great, let's use that, because if we say those words back to that client, they're going to buy that because they're going to feel like they own it. They came up with it. So it resonates with them. And that's why we're saying, if you're going to do a USP, don't just use it. Tell your clients, does this work for you? Does this feel good for you? Does that make sense to you? And you'll get the answers, but don't just assume you know everything. Let them tell you. So something to take on board when you go about this process. So, target audience we've talked about there. So we'll move to the second part of defining your USP, and that's knowing your marketplace, knowing your competitors, looking at things that you offer, gaps, opportunities, things that are different. Do you want to talk to this one, Sim, first?
Well, again, in assumptions, we sometimes assume that we have come up with a brilliant idea. We fall in love with our own process, and we fall in love with our product because it's our baby. It's easy to do that. But in order to truly put something out that is actually going to be of use to somebody, one, you need to know that somebody, and you need to understand if they have been exposed to a product or a service or whatever the offer is that already has jolted them or tilted them in a specific in one direction or another, so that when you put that offer in front of them, you're not going to be repeating the same thing. So understand that. Look for areas where your competitors are not doing something that you can fill that gap with something different. and not necessarily better, but if it is better, it's the icing on the top of the cake.
It is, yeah. And I think we were talking about this before we went live, was the fact that a USP is not about being better, it's implied that it's better. Okay, so that's something to be understood about the USP is it really doesn't have to say I'm better than my competitor. It just says I'm different to my competitor, and you as a person hearing that goes, different sounds good or different sounds better. Like, so it's implied, and the person makes that connection in their brain that you're better because you're different.
Oh, I always have conversations around this, and because of my personal journey, I relate to sports and create comparisons in my head. As you're saying this, Chris, in my head, I'm thinking basketball, and I'm thinking, all right, a guard is not better than a post player. They're just different. And within guards and within post players, there are specific attributes that make them more suited to fill a gap, a position inside a team, not necessarily better. There are faster guards, there are taller guards, there are more handly guards, there are more vision-oriented guards. There are guards today that shoot before they pass, but that's not always the way it's been. What matters is to find the best guard for the available position and how it interacts with the rest of the team. And bringing this back into branding and marketing is basically finding that space where somebody's not doing something that you are able to do, you have a skill in, and you're going to be different. Not necessarily better. More suited is not more better.
Yeah. So, and just to be clear, this is not a copywriting session. This is just how to identify the USP. And I guess we're going to get into that later anyway, about the fact that you need to refine it as you go. So don't judge us on our English as we try and define this.
His English is much more better.
Yeah, exactly. So as you've identified there, looking at your competitors, it will give out some clear, I guess, way to look at it and define how you might be able to differentiate you from your competitors in a marketplace. And this is an important one. We have touched on this very much, repeated itself over the last journey of sessions we've run about knowing yourself. So it's no issue trying to tell people that you're unique by selling something you don't actually sell or you offer. So make sure that it's something that you do, it's something that you can actually deliver on, and it's specific to you. So I guess, Sim, knowing yourself is really important in developing a USP.
Absolutely. I think it could be also relevant to create a better contrast between knowing thyself and knowing what not to do in order to be able to create that USP that actually is going to be helpful. So we can talk about a number of examples of what are not USPs, what are not differentiators. Saying that your company tries harder, or you go the extra mile, or you have more talent is not necessarily helping your customer make a decision. It's an attempt to, and it's very honest, but like you and I have seen this come up a number of times when we ask what makes you different. We try harder. We put the extra oomph. We have more quality in today's marketplace. These are things that are expected anyway. In today's world, with all the what do you call the teenager self entitlement? This also transposes into later layers of age brackets, but quality and effort are just basic defaults that the marketplace expects you to have. Harping on them is not going to differentiate you. It's actually going to work against the fact that you don't have anything else to sell other than to say, we are competing at the same level. We are cheaper. That's another one that many times comes up. It's not necessarily a differentiation point. You're just becoming cheaper than everybody else in the space. You don't want to become cheaper. You just want to become something more relevant to your audience. I hope this initial approach to defining the USP by defining what not to do is going to help somebody watching this, because it is critically important. Know thyself,
Yeah.
know your products, and what makes you unique. You have skill sets and you have things that made you you. Again, ask other people around you how they see you and what you're good at. Because I keep saying this many, many times. Coaches know this better than anybody. We're not very good at the exercise of self perspective. So ask somebody else, have feedback, and be open to that feedback.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so we'll move on to the next one, which is define your value proposition. So what we're talking about here is actually putting it down on paper and writing something that will, in a short sentence, at best, if you can get it under 5 words, that'd be the ultimate goal of achieving this. But understanding that, it's not always possible, but it is a short statement that focuses on a benefit and the advantage that your customer will experience by choosing your brand over your competitor. So it needs to be clear, memorable, and it needs to be compelling. So it's going to take time, as we said earlier, and that's why, when you come up with what you think is the ultimate goal of the USP, try it out on someone and see what their response is and see what they say. Do you have any tips and tricks or approaches for how we go about helping clients find this USP and drafting that first statement?
Again, examples are a very good place to start.
All right.
I always remember. Sorry.
Which one do you want to go with? I've got some examples. So which one do you want to bring up on the screen?
Go ahead. Pull up
Did
the
you want the
examples.
domino one? Did you want the domino
Yes,
one?
that's the one I was going to go to. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
So you get your pizza inside of 30 minutes or you don't pay for it. It doesn't get any simpler than that. It's unique. They don't have to have the best pizza. In fact, they don't say they have the best pizza. Let's be frank. They just have the fastest delivery service. And this caters to a very specific crowd. This crowd is usually students. They live in an arrangement with other students. They don't care about the quality. They don't care about the freshness of the ingredients. They don't care about how long it took that dough to cook and why it's going to crackle more. They just want pizza. They want it now. Usually because they're in some activities that that require nourishment.
That's right. Yeah. So obviously it and in this case also Domino's USP communicates a benefit that the target audience values. So it's fast, it's hot, it's fresh. Now I guess you said in your little thing there that maybe fresh wasn't important. They've identified it was. So I guess that may be something that comes into consideration. The one thing that makes it successful is it's specific and it's clear and it offers a guarantee of quality that comes, or it's free. That's the promise. So that's why this one is one of those ones where in them saying it, it feels like they're a mate of yours who said, look, I'll be there for you. I'll do it. It'll happen. And guess what? If you don't, you get free. And as you said, their target audience, that's an unbeatable offer. If I'm going to not only get what I want and it's going to be free, this is amazing. So it's pretty hard to go
absolutely
down that pathway. Now, most clients, when they talk to us, they talk about this one. They say they want to be Apple. And Apple's is distinct different. Now, the thing is, Apple were thinking different back then, and they're still thinking different now. And they constantly deliver on that. Now, they're not perfect. We know that, if you did a 9 out of 10, they probably have one slip up there somewhere in it. But the thing is, because they've done it 9 times well, you forget about that one slip up and you kind of go with all the other 9 because it sort of gets pushed aside. It's like, well, hang on, they've done so many other good things. That one slip up, I kind of forget about. So it's again, this one, it appeals to a lot of creatives and individuals who love innovation. And so that really works for them. And the other thing about this is that it communicates a philosophy and a unique approach to design and innovation. A lot of competitors, like when the Apple iPhone launched, like mobiles weren't being done that way. And now they're being done that way. Like there's not a phone. Like, and if other companies were thinking differently, they would go off and try something different. But I guess the only one that might have come close to that, and I guess is trying, is their competitor. Is it God, I'm having a blank here. Is it Samsung? Yeah, Samsung.
Samsung is it? Yeah,
And they've got the foldable phones and things like that. So,
yeah,
there is
yeah.
someone who's trying to, but how they deliver it clearly isn't being communicated as effectively as how Apple go about it.
It's very interesting because with I must have cut you off.
Go,
You're
no,
going to
go,
conclude that. Yeah.
no, go for it.
With the Apple example, which is a fantastic example of both branding and USP, there's two things that I've always thought about Apple. I was converted to Apple. I was not an Apple person up until 2012, and I noticed something as I was going through my Windows journey is that the Apple
Yep,
community was very hardcore about it, and
yep,
you rarely see a passive stance. Either you're with Apple or you're not with Apple. And I've had jacuzzi discussions with neighbors who could not stand to talk about Apple and their operating system. There's all sorts of reasons, technical and non-technical. For the technical oriented and the engineer minded, Apple is a pig of an operating system because it does not plug and play. You try to adapt other systems to get into it, you're going to have problems with programming. You're going to have problems with hardware. You're going to have problems with endings, hence why they became so niched that they have their releases of plugs without which you will not be able to operate your Mac device. This is something very, very unique and counterproductive, unless you're Apple and you've built that brand. That's one of the
yep.
things. The other thing is that um, now I'm having a blank. We'll get back to it.
Okay.
It was
Well,
the
what I'll do
hardcore
is
community.
I'll move on to Nike's version. Okay, you got it. Yep.
Yeah,
Go for it.
yeah. No. Go,
Okay,
go to Nike. Go to Nike.
You love your sports, so
Yes.
Nike's Just Do It. I thought would be right up your alley to talk about theirs because it's another one that is a 3-letter one that communicates a message of empowerment and motivation to the target audience. It just gets into the psyche of the physical fitness, athleticism, and being active. Like it's something that you just tell yourself, just do it, just get up, just do it. And the funny thing is, I can't remember. I wish I'd taken note of this, but it actually wasn't Nike's. It comes from someone else. It's just that it was someone who spoke in one of their ads or one of their things and used it, and it just became synonymous with the ad. And people using it, it became a psyche, and they attached themselves to it and went, "We need to use that in all our future marketing."
Very, very good example. And yes, that is correct. Their tagline was taken out of context and it adapted, plugged right into the mindset that goes with having purchased or being part of the Nike army. So the blank that I drew just before, it just came back, and I'm going to tie it in with this. So very timely to bring up Nike as an example. For those who do some studies in marketing and brand, Nike was not always the powerhouse, absolutely dominator of the marketplace that it is today. Up until they recruited a critical piece that turned everything inside their brand into a whole new dimension, they were a struggling brand. Phil Knight, the creator, the founder of Nike, he was a hardcore runner. He was very stubborn about his ways, like all runners are apparently. And it wasn't up until a marketing person made a huge internal effort to change a little bit of this mindset that they dared to go after who is today considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan. I recommend you watch the movie Air. It's coming out right now. For those of you who see this or listen to this in the future, you will have seen Air. I just happened to have seen Air a couple of weeks ago. I love the fact that everything I studied and learned through the book written by Phil Knight was transposed into the reality that this movie relates. And the way they went after Michael Jordan created a legacy both for players, for league, and for the difference. This is the blank that I drew just before. I'm going to tie it back in now. Everybody wants to be different until difference comes with the need to not do what everybody else does. Difference comes with a requirement of great courage. I want you to listen to this. When you say, I want to be different, I want to be Apple, I want to be Nike, you need to know you're going to be a pioneer. And pioneer many times carry arrows on their backs because they're going to be the first to walk out on the field, and nobody will want to see them. Nobody will want to consider them. And there is a price to be paid for being a pioneer. If you want to be different like Nike and Apple, you're probably going to go up the status quo, the default up until that point where you dare to stand up and wave a flag of difference. Apple had this. They worked from a garage for years. They had to fight programmers, programming, the standard of the industry. Nike, the same. They were a running only company. They had to shift the mindset internally before they considered basketball, before they considered not just sticking with the third and fourth tier players, but actually going for the top of the mountain. Their bet paid off. That's a fact. And the way the brand grew and the Jordan brand grew and how that opened the door for other players in the future to create exclusive deals that up to this day are unmatched in kind to what Jordan did. They had to go through a lot. So this is what I'm going to leave it at. Think different, be different, but be very, very brave.
Yeah. No, we look forward to talking to people about that. So with what you just touched on then, integrating a USP across all touch points, whether that's the way you messaging, way you do websites, marketing, collateral, customer interactions, how you leverage it through your brand with the visual storytelling and obviously the personality to reinforce and amplify your USP. And then obviously looking at how you monitor and adapt that. So I guess just with the examples you've just given there, clearly, knowing your audience, knowing what you need to say for them to believe you, and then you can deliver it, is a huge part of your USP.
Absolutely. And then if you hit the nail on the head, make sure to leverage that and put it everywhere so that people know that you are in fact unique in what you do. Your website nowadays, we all have, or most companies are expected to have some presence online. If you can't find a company online, that's sort of a big question mark. And I myself have doubts if I should order from somebody that doesn't have a social media presence, or if I go to their social media presence and it looks very fakey, superficial, doesn't have much engagement, doesn't have a lot of reviews. The reviews are, was excellent, thank you. This sounds a fake. So whenever you have your USP nailed, tested, and your assumptions are about to dissipate, it is time to put it out on the marketplace, your website, your business cards, for those of you using business cards, your printed goods, your social media, all of those platforms, they need to reflect your big claim.
Cool. Yep. And we love our pets. All right. So I guess we've touched on that. Know your audience, know you, and make yourself stand out, but be authentic to who you are. It's such a common thing, and we've touched on this and even joked about it in a few other sessions that we've done here, where just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that it's the right fit for you. Like, you need to find your way to communicate you and deliver your way. And for many people, this comes very naturally. And some of the clients we work with, we're so excited to be working with them because they just do this without even thinking. Sometimes it's hard for a client to understand what makes them unique, and we have to work through a process. And that's what we do in our P8 program. When we work with our clients, we talk about the ways that they can identify that, bring it to the surface, and then through the power of branding, amplify the brand in ways that they communicate that. And hopefully today we've highlighted how you do that through your USP.
Excellent. Well said, Chris.
All right. Cool.
I think we're going to leave it at this today.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone. If you want to hear more about what we're doing, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to hear from you and talk about how we can improve your brand and in many cases, amplify your brand. See you next
Amplify
time.
your brand. See you guys.